LA Clippers preseason has concluded. And what are the major takeaways? Who showed that they are the starting point guard? Is it Reggie or is it John Wall? How did Kawhi and Paul George look? Gonna be talking about that all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host going into my 18th season as a Clipper fan, Darian Vaziri. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course on YouTube, my own YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper, where I go live after LA basketball games and just do LA sports content as well as NBA and NBA history content. So go check that out if you're into the NBA. And of course, if you're a Clipper fan. And if you're a Clipper fan or just a fan of any team watching this pod or listening, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And let me know, out of 1 to 10, how do you rank the Clippers preseason? And not in terms of results, but in terms of what you wanted to see. Did you see the things you wanted to see? Were they just a little too shaky for you? Were you a little disappointed with how they were? On a scale of 1 to 10, rank the Clippers preseason in whatever you expected and what you wanted to see. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the three main takeaways for me. And the first one is the obvious point guard duel between Reggie Jackson and John Wall. Who's going to start? Who do I think made the best case for themselves to start? And then, of course, also going to be talking about how Kawhi Leonard looked. Paul George as well, but it's mainly Kawhi Leonard. He's the one coming off the injury. And then, at the end, the guys that I think are going to surprise people this season and be even better than we expect. But let's start out with John Wall and Reggie Jackson. So, as you guys know, if you've been listening to these pods that I've been making since I just took over, I was Team Reggie in terms of the starting lineup going into the preseason. I thought that his catch-and-shoot ability alongside Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, like we saw in the 2021 season, it was such a great fit next to them. And I wanted to see that again and let John Wall kind of run that second unit with Norman Powell, and he can really do his own thing. Because one thing that I knew about John Wall is he's a playmaker, proper point guard. He wants the ball in his hands. He's always had the ball in his hands a lot in Washington. And I also want the ball in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's hands, playmaking and continuing to improve in pick and roll. And again, I've mentioned so many times that the way you play make and pick and roll these days is being a threat to score. It's the whole role of a point guard has changed in the NBA. It used to be you go out there, put guys in their spots, give guys the ball in their spots. If it means feeding a guy in the low post, getting it to your best scorer on the mid post, and you kind of chill a little bit and stay at the top of the key mainly and kind of dictate your offense. But now it's a lot more pick and roll, being a threat to score in that pick and roll, thus opening up an opportunity for one of your four other teammates. And Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are obviously threats to score, and as they've improved playmaking-wise, that's opened things up for the rest. So that being the case, I want them to have the ball the most out of the starters, and I think John Wall could potentially take that away. But John Wall showed me a lot in this preseason that made me reconsider everything. And that's because he showed me that he's just better than Reggie Jackson by a significant amount. And here's the thing. I knew that, though, before I even made my statement about Reggie starting, because it's about fit, not about who's better. And Ty Lue has reiterated that on a number of occasions, that it's about fit. And he also reiterated that just recently. And when he said that, it makes me think, even though I said that I think in the last pod I said John Wall is going to start on opening night, it's making me reconsider that statement and think, man, maybe he's still leaning towards Reggie. Because here's what I took away from John Wall. John was awesome, especially in that last Nuggets game. But he, like, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Nuggets game, it was a Timberwolves game that John Wall was electric. But he was also good in the Nuggets game. And the main thing is his pace. We've talked about it on so many occasions, but John Wall's pace is something the Clippers have not had. Somebody that can push the pace, even if it's not a fast break, make the defense collapse, and find shooters in transition. The Clippers have really not had a real transition game since Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have come. This would allow them to push the pace and get some easier looks, because Ty Lue said it best, and I fully agree. What the Clippers have really lacked in the Kawhi and Paul George era has been creating easy baskets. You know, they create a lot of open threes, but other than that, when the three ball's not falling, they struggle to get easy baskets to the rim. It's mainly Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with their mid-range mastery or their isolation basketball. And so far in the preseason, and I wouldn't take this too seriously, but so far in the preseason, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have not been getting the step and blowing by defenders. John Wall and Norman Powell have shown the best ability to get to the basket on this Clipper team in the preseason. And in the regular season, I think John Wall will absolutely have the easiest time getting 2 feet in the paint and getting the step on his defender one-on-one, because he's just quicker off the bounce, even still coming off all those injuries. And I mentioned a bunch of times about Kawhi Leonard not being the quickest in terms of burst and stuff like that. He just needs to get guys on his hip, though. He's so strong, and he's a mid-range master. It's more so Paul George that I want to see get to the basket a little bit more. Actually, not a little bit more, a lot more in the season, and he will. But he didn't look like he was really getting by guys in the preseason. So I just hope that's lazy and kind of just him getting back into the swing of things and not being like 100% his best self yet. But right now, John Wall clearly looks like the only player on the Clipper team that can get 2 feet in the paint consistently off the dribble in his own creation. And because of that fact, I think John Wall deserves to start because he's just that much better than Reggie. I think that the fit with Reggie is probably better right now because they've played with one another. But it's going to take time for John Wall to assimilate and acclimate himself with this Clipper team and with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the lineup together. And what obviously the con of having John Wall is, like I said, was him taking the ball away from Kawhi Leonard and Paul George because he's got a point to prove. He knows he's the best playmaker, passer on the team, so he wants the ball. And I don't want it to be too much John Wall where it feels like he's running the ball, running the offense on every pick and roll, on every possession when they're in, and it's not, spreading the wealth. And when I mean spreading the wealth, I don't mean different guys getting shots. I mean different guys creating shots. There's a difference. I think John Wall can get good looks for everybody on the team, but I think there are times where you don't want Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just being spot-up guys and just coming off screens and stuff like that. You want the ball in their hands too. And that's why John Wall has put so much work in shooting the ball. That's the main reason why I want John Wall to start now, is because he's shown me that he's improved on his catch-and-shoot three-ball game. And if he can improve, he won't be Reggie Jackson level probably, but if he improved on that and can make catch-and-shoot threes, then by all means, what's the con? Because he's a better defender, too. He's much stronger, much better laterally, and he's clearly showing that he's going to put more effort in on that end. He plays with so much passion. They both do, Reggie and John Wall. They totally both do. But John Wall has this fire in him, especially going through everything he's been through recently, that I just want to see him start because of how he played in the preseason. I mean, that game against Minnesota, 20 points in 21 minutes, he was incredible, and obviously he increases the pace. And he got to the line 9 times and made all his free throws. Reggie Jackson hasn't shown anything in the preseason to warrant him starting over John Wall. If he's going to start, it's because of what he's done for the Clippers already and how he's looked alongside Kawhi Leonard and Paul George already. Because that's what I think Ty Lue's going to go with. And based on his recent comments, it seems he may go with Reggie Jackson to start on opening night against the Lakers. And look, Clipper Nation, regardless of what you want, if your team Reggie to start, if your team John to start, it really doesn't matter. It really comes down to who finishes the game. Starting is a little bit trivial, in my opinion. I mean, remember, Zaza Pachulia started for the 2017 Warriors, who are by many people considered the greatest team of all time, and he wasn't a very great player. You know what I'm saying? So who starts is not the main thing. It's who finishes, and that's the more important thing. But Reggie Jackson and John Wall, in conclusion, I was talking to one of the beat writers today in a Twitter space, Tamara Azarli, for Clutch Points, and he was saying that it sounds like John Wall will probably be load managed too. If that's the case, I could see them going with Reggie Jackson starting because he's more consistently going to play, and they don't want to mess up the rotation or mess up the starting lineup and tweak it too much. But again, Ty Lue's going to adjust, so keep that confidence in him that he's going to make the right decision. I know he will. I trust him. But overall, my takeaway is I want John Wall starting. I think he could be the third best player on this Clipper team, and what he does is get 2 feet in the paint, get the defense to collapse, and adds an element of pace that the Clippers have lacked for many years. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about our main guys, the main men, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. How did they look in preseason? What can we take away? And how do we think, or what do I think Kawhi Leonard's going to look like in this regular season? He's going to be better than I expected before the preseason started, or worse? Going to be talking about that coming up. NFL is back this weekend, and I'm working the Rams game at SoFi Stadium against the Carolina Panthers. The line for that game is -10 for the Rams, +10 for Carolina. If you want to place a bet on the Rams, you better go to Bet Online. Not just Rams games as well. Any NFL game, any NBA game. Of course, the season is on the horizon. Just go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your football, basketball, baseball betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find across all sports. It remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport you could think of, including cricket, MMA, boxing, golf. The MLB playoffs are on. Go place your bets on that. And, of course, the World Cup in Qatar is only a little over a month away. Can you believe it? Just got to head up to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay. Maybe the biggest question for the Clippers in the preseason, besides the whole who's going to start at point guard thing, was the health of Kawhi Leonard and how he looked coming off an ACL tear. And he didn't play that first game against Maccabi Ra'anana. And he didn't play the last game against the Denver Nuggets, but he played 2 games in between against the Blazers and the Wolves. And I thought what stuck out to me in that Blazers game was how aggressive he was right away. And that means looking to create his shot, looking to go one-on-one, looking to post up mismatches. That was really encouraging because that shows me that his body feels pretty good. And yeah, he said his legs still felt a little heavy, but that's normal, and that's why you play in the preseason. And that's why I said I think he's going to have limited minutes to start the season. I don't see him playing over 30 minutes for at least the first 5 games. I don't see him playing 30-plus minutes. But I could be wrong on that too. But that's my estimation, that he won't play over 30 minutes in the first 5 games. But he looked pretty good. His body looked good. He looked strong. And in the Timberwolves game, you saw glimpses of him turning on the Jets. You saw him in transition, take those 1-2 long steps on that fast break for that layup where he extended very nicely. And then you saw him in a couple plays later, split the defense at the top of the key or right wing and go in for the one-handed dunk. So seeing Kawhi Leonard finish above the rim, that was very encouraging as well. And he finished 4 of 8 in that game and got into his patented turnaround over Anthony Edwards, contested at the left elbow. It was beautiful, and that made me think this guy's back. The only thing I said in the 3 major questions about Kawhi episode that I'm still looking for in the regular season is going to be the defense. Will he still have that same lateral ability? I think his rotations, his communication, his rim protection in terms of when he's rotating at that rim in the final line of defense will be very good. I want to see if he's still able to guard those elites. Get over those screens, even though the Clippers are going to switch a lot when they don't want to switch a lot, especially when they're putting Zoo in the pick and roll. Kawhi getting over those screens and being a hound on defense and still being that Kawhi Leonard that we become so accustomed to watching on that end of the floor. And of course, it's not San Antonio Kawhi defensively. Everybody knows that. He doesn't guard the best players the whole game like that. He'll guard them in spurts and on certain switches. But he just needs to be able to do that at an elite level. Overall, though, very encouraging signs from Kawhi in the preseason, in my opinion. People were talking about his inefficiency in the Portland game. He was literally 3 for 8. Like, that's not that bad. Slightly under 50%. First game back off an ACL tear in preseason. Like, people really, it's funny. I'm listening to, the Twitter timeline and these people. It's like you've almost never watched basketball before. Like, is this your first rodeo watching preseason basketball? Coming up with all these conclusions. Guys, it's 4 games. Teams are not taking wins and losses seriously. We've literally, as far as the Clippers go, Kawhi Leonard has not played a second half. Paul George did not play a second half. They're not playing their real players in the fourth quarter. So how can you be taking these results seriously? How can you even be taking full quarters seriously, even with the best players? These are just experimental things. And guys getting back into form, getting back into game shape. You can't take anything seriously till opening night. And opening night against the Lakers is going to be very emotionally charged for many reasons. Obviously, the whole Laker-Clipper thing, Then you have the Patrick Beverley angle. So it's going to be an emotionally charged game. Kawhi is making his return on that game officially, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to play against the Lakers. Already, guys, Clipper Nation, if he has a bad game, you'll hear my episode and talk about it, but please do not overreact. One, if he plays badly in the first game, of course people are going to be clowning him on Twitter, and the haters, the Laker fans, and all these people are going to do that. But he's coming off an ACL tear. It's going to take time to get the best version of Kawhi Leonard, and I think you're going to see the best version of him again. I think he's still got that in him, and I think those signs in the preseason have shown that he's going to be himself, and all the things that the team themselves are saying about him. It looks like Kawhi of old. Luke Kennard, and I think this is obviously being a little bit of a, his teammate wants to say good things about him, excite the fans. He said that he may look even better than before. And, I'm not going to see that till I believe it. We don't even need that as Clipper fans. We just need him to look as good. If he can be that 2019, 2017, 2021 version of himself, then the Clippers have as good a chance to win the championship as anybody. And I believe we're going to see that version, but it's going to take 20 to 30 games in my eyes. Does that seem like a lot? Maybe, but remember, he's not going to play all 20 or 30 of those games. He's going to sit back-to-backs, and I don't know if I'm mistaken here, but I think the Clippers have 4 to 5 back-to-backs in November alone, and he will definitely be sitting one of those games. Big question, will he be sitting out the third game of the season? And that'll be the home opener for the Clippers against the Phoenix Suns. I hope not, because there's going to be a lot of Clipper fans in attendance, probably myself included, because I always love going to opening night. I mean, obviously, I went to opening night last year against Memphis. Went to opening night in 2007 against the Denver Nuggets. And opening night in the 2007-8 season against the Golden State Warriors, all of which the Clippers won. Except for the Memphis game last season, they didn't win. And I went to opening night 2015-16 against the Mavericks. I remember that was Paul Pierce's first game as a Clipper. But it's going to be so exciting. I think Kawhi Leonard actually will play that Suns game to be there for the fans. But I'm really not tripping if he does or doesn't, because I'm in it for the name on the front. Of course, it would be great to see Kawhi back in front of the Staples Center, in front of the Clipper faithful. But I'm not, pressuring him too much. So overall, the takeaway for me is Kawhi Leonard looks great. Paul George looked amazing against Portland. Looked flawless. But then in the last two games, he looked a little shaky. In the Minnesota game, I thought he settled too much for threes. And then he just had a slightly off game against Denver, and I think it was the lack of easy shots. So Paul George needs to find a way to get himself easier baskets, but I also think that it was just preseason. He was kind of going through the motions, especially on defense. There were times where Paul was kind of just standing up straight and not really looking locked in. But in the last game, in the Denver one, he got a couple of steals. So I like to see those active hands. And of course, that switch everything scheme is going to cause a lot of havoc for other teams with just the length and the long wingspans of the Clippers. And of course, the good lateral ability and the communication will grow. People are saying the Clippers defense didn't look that good in these preseason games. A lot of these lineups, they haven't really fully played together yet. So they're going to have to take time to learn each other. So again, it's a work in progress, but overall, the Clippers still have more continuity than most teams. Let's just take opening night, for example. You got the Lakers. Listen how many new players they have. Patrick Beverley, Damian Jones, Thomas Bryant, Lonnie Walker, Juan Toscano Anderson. Kendrick Nunn didn't even play a second last season. So all these guys are going to be playing their first game to the Lakers, while the Clippers, the only new guy is John Wall. Everybody else has played together, basically. Norman Powell, he's going to play with... No, Norman Powell's played with every Clipper at least 2 games, including Kawhi. So John Wall's the only one, really, that's assimilating and acclimating with the team. So Clippers are going to be fine. I'm really excited for opening night, and I'll be really excited about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I think they're both going to have great seasons. Kawhi Leonard, I think it'll take a little bit of time for him to get his legs under him and be the best version of himself. Probably will be on a minutes restriction, definitely load managed, but I think I'll be really encouraged by what I saw in the preseason from him. And coming up next, I'm going to be talking about the 2 players that I was most encouraged by in the preseason and who I think made the best case to be Zubac's backup in case of injury or emergency. Going to be talking about that coming up. Okay. The biggest takeaways for me, besides the John Wall Reggie thing and Kawhi Leonard being back, Marcus Morris Sr. and Luke Kennard were unbelievable. Let's just start with Marcus Morris Sr., the guy that I was spending full pods talking about. He's got to be traded. His presence on the team is redundant. No such thing as guys that can space the floor and defend. The key word there is defend. And that's one thing we've been fairly critical of Mook the last year or two, mainly the last year. But at times he can be very lazy, not move very well laterally, and not even get up at the rim when he's like the last line of defense rotating at the rim. But I think the problem there was all intertwined. I think it was that he just didn't have the athleticism because he was dealing with a knee issue. And he couldn't really get off the ground and just didn't have that much burst. That was my main thing. My main criticism of Senior was he lives off a pretty tough shot diet of a lot of, well, open threes are fine, but he takes a lot of contested threes and contested mid-ranges because he can hit them. He's a contested shot maker. But when he's not hitting those shots, where was he impacting the game? He's not a playmaker, passer, ball handler. He wasn't playing great defense. But what we've seen in this preseason has been nothing short of incredible. He's the only player I can say I think that played well in like every game. He was efficient in every game. I think the first game against Maccabi Ra'anana actually was the only one that he wasn't like 50% or over shooting the ball. But he was making the normal Senior shots, but also making shots with a little bit faster pace behind them. Like there was one play where he was running full speed in transition, or not even full speed, but on the move, caught the ball, set his feet, went up right away in one fluid motion, hit a three in transition. And then there was another play, and this was in the Timberwolves game, if I'm not mistaken, where he filled the lane, and usually he would spot up at the three-point line for a transition three or go to the corner, but he filled the lane because I could see it in his body language. He wanted a dunk, and that was the whole joke at the media day, that he's going to dunk a lot more this season than we've seen in previous years. And he did it in the preseason, and the reaction of the bench was absolute gold. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness. Marcus Morris does have a little more pep in his step. And not only that, he was blowing by some guys in this preseason, which is not something you see like that from Senior. You usually see him take a couple jab steps, take a contested shot over somebody. But for him to put the ball on the deck and make plays just shows that he does have a little bit more of that burst. And remember, he hasn't played a preseason with the Clippers yet. This is the first preseason he played because he obviously came in the middle of the 2020 season, and then he didn't play preseason in 2021 or 2022. So this was the first time you saw him play in that preseason, and he looked amazing. I mean, efficient. The main takeaway, though, is his defense. He was sliding really well with everybody, especially in that Minnesota game. Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. Just, if Senior can defend, he's going to be part of those switch everything schemes. He's going to be one of the best players in the Clippers, and I think he's going to have an extremely efficient season again. And I also think he's going to be, maybe, this is, not a true prediction, but there's a really good chance he ends up being the player of the game on opening night because he is so good against those Lakers. I mean, look no further than last season. He was awesome. And then my other one, Luke Kennard. He missed 2 shots the whole preseason. The guy is an absolute sniper. And I said Kennard will probably be the odd man out. If Terrence Mann doesn't start making more shots, he might be in trouble. But the thing about Terrence is he's the best point of attack defender on the Clippers, in my opinion. He's never short of effort. And nowadays in the NBA, I don't mean to sound like, disrespectful or anything, but like playing hard every night is a talent that not everybody has. And Terrence Mann is that kind of player. He plays hard every night. You know what you're going to get from him. He moves without the ball. He's fantastic in transition, and he's the best player getting over screens, and I think laterally staying in front of guys at this stage of their careers. Because, of course, Kawhi Leonard in his prime was amazing defensively, one-on-one. But Terrence Mann is going to be the guy that guards a lot of the team's best players, in my opinion, and I think that he's going to be needed and won't be just pushed to the wayside. But Luke Kennard, and Ty Lue confirmed it. He said, Kennard's not, he's playing. Like, there's no doubt. It's not going to be hard to sit him out because he's going to play. He's just too ridiculous shooting the ball. He moves so well without it. And when guys run him off the line, he also has that mid-range game. 2 dribbles, pull. He makes tougher shots than J.J. Redick did. I like his game a lot more. Kennard's going to be fantastic this season. He's going to continue to get better. And I wouldn't be surprised if he led the league in three-point percentage again. 45% last season. He's just incredible. And, of course, anytime Kawhi or Paul load manage, especially Kawhi, or even just one player from that 11 is out, Kennard's going to play no problems, and he's going to get 20-plus minutes because he's that good. So, huge optimism from me in terms of talking about Kennard and Paul and Marcus Morris. They look fantastic. And another guy that also looked amazing was Moussa Diabate. In terms of that backup center role, he sealed that spot. But I don't think the Clippers are going to play with a backup center like that. It's only going to be emergencies. So Moussa won't get rotation minutes. Don't expect that, especially with those 11 players that I named. Or I'm going to name them now. John Wall, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Ivica Zubac, Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, Nico Batum, Robert Covington is the 11. Amir Coffey is the 12th man. And then I'd say either Moussa or Brandon Boston for the 13th. So those 11 players, it's going to be hard to play them all at once when everyone's healthy. But anytime a player's out, those guys are going to get minutes. And it's going to be amazing to watch. Those are my takeaways from the preseason. By the way, remember to comment on the YouTube channel. 1 to 10, rank the Clippers preseason for whatever you wanted to see. Did you see it? Or did they fall short of your expectations a little bit? Not make you feel as good about their potential as advertiser as you had initially hoped. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDripperPod. And, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys, because Clipper content and NBA content will be coming all season long, uncensored, unfiltered, my style. But remember to also subscribe to Locked On Clippers because it's the fastest way to grow the show. And we are on our way to 900 subscribers. We are 29th out of 30 in terms of Locked On NBA channels, just surpassed the Spurs. Let's get us monetized at that 1,000. Make sure to comment for the algorithms. And remember the age-old proverb, go Clippers. By the way, shout out to the great Ralph Lawler who just followed us on Twitter. It means so much to me. Oh me, oh my. I'm just ecstatic about Ralph following me. Because why wouldn't I be? That's a hero right there. Build a statue of him outside the Intuit Dome. Come on. All right. Catch you guys later. Hope you enjoyed. Go Clippers.